Hello, hello. I think we are set up. Ooh, good to go. Yes. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today I am coming at you talking about the C word, consistency, and I feel super pumped to speak about this because not only do I think what we, how we describe consistency is misplaced, let's say. But when I speak to people about it and I coach people on this, I hear all the stories we've adopted around consistency and how we use them to beat ourselves up. So, for example, well, I'm not being consistent, therefore I'm not good enough. I'm not being consistent, therefore I'm not going to succeed. I'm not being consistent, therefore I'm doing something wrong. And all of this narrative comes from a male work culture, which is very much like consistency creates results. And it's not just a male work culture, it's like a factory work culture. It's like inherited from when work was really very focused on output and very less focused on creativity or strategy or any of those kind of things. So all this to say that I am taking on consistency and challenging the rule that consistency creates results. And I want you to even consider it before we go into today's training. If consistency created results, then every person that showed up every single day would create the same results. This isn't true. And we know this isn't true. Even like for you as an individual, I want you to think about the times where you've done this, I did the exact same thing and created different results. Why is that possible? Because it's not just that consistency creates our results. So what I want to teach today, and I'm bringing my whiteboard along, so do let me know if you struggle to hear me because the mic is here. But we're going to be using whiteboards for today's training. What I want us to think about is consistency and how we interact with it, okay? So we can start with, let me see if you guys, you can see my belly, there you go. So we have consistency as a concept in the world. And then we have our thoughts, can you see that? We have our thoughts about consistency, right? Consistency creates success. Consistency is difficult. Consistency is easy. Consistency is challenging. Consistency is necessary. I have to be consistent. And any of our thoughts about consistency are going to create our relationship with consistency. So a lot of people will come to me with the have-tos and the shoulds that came up this week on the live coaching call that maybe you were there for, or the replays available in the group. And what we end up doing is becoming, yes, the experts told me I'd grow Instagram if I'm consistent, but not seen that yet after 9 months. Yeah, it's like, what does it even mean to be consistent, right? So consistency is just a concept that someone decided on and that we engage with. And the reason why I'm bringing it up today and challenging it is because I see so many people, so many of my clients, so many of us beat ourselves up because we aren't being consistent. We're not doing consistency right, and consistency is what's going to create the results. So it's literally just a concept that we can engage with, that we have thoughts about, that a lot of us have similar thoughts about because we see those thoughts on social media all the time where we're being told to be consistent, for example. But what that does is it builds a belief that we get to choose or not choose. And the issue I have for us as women in selling this story that consistency creates results is we have cycles, we have hormones, we have, all the humans, even like working parents or like anyone who's neurodiverse, like being consistent is not a natural state for humans. So we are forcing ourselves into consistency, thinking that's creating our results instead of giving our energy to what actually could create results. So the first way I want you to think about consistency is it's just a concept that our brain has thoughts about. It's just a concept that we interact and engage with. The second way I want you to think about consistency is that consistency itself is a thought. Consistency itself is not a fact. Like, it's not defined on what our neighbor defines as consistent and what our pet defines as consistent can all be different, right? It's all measured. Someone might say consistency requires showing up every day. Someone say consistency might be requiring to show up for the same amount of time every day. Someone might say consistency requires using the same platform every day. Whatever it is, we have all these different saying I'm having some internet connection problems. So if I'm cutting out at any point, please do let me know. I don't want this to go skipped for you guys. So needless to say, consistency is a thought. It's what we choose to define it as. And when people are telling you to be consistent, typically they're not telling you even what they mean. So we're left with this, like, all these outstanding decisions. Oh yes, but I'm back now. Thanks, Joe. I hope you guys didn't miss anything important. So I was speaking about how consistency is a concept that our brain interacts with, and now I'm speaking about how consistency is a thought, and it's not measurable. We don't all measure it the same way. We can weigh it differently. Someone can say consistency is the amount of time we spend, or how frequently we spend, or what we spend it doing. So really, the whole idea that you get to decide that you are consistent, even if you don't show up with equal time intervals for the same amount of time. One of the things I teach my clients is consistency is a mindset. And I want you to think how you would show up differently if you were willing to just believe you are consistent instead of looking to prove you are consistent by showing up every single day for the same amount of time on the same platforms, or however it shows up for you. Remember, I don't know if I've really gone into it in this training, but how I define hustle is trying to prove a belief by taking lots of action. So if we try to prove that we are consistent by showing up every single day for the same time, at the same time, on the same platform, and I'm just using social media as an example here. It could also be in the dating world, or, you know, making dinner for our kids, or whatever it might be. When we are trying to prove with our actions that we are consistent, we are immediately hustling, and we are sitting in the belief that we are not consistent, right? We're like doing to try and prove it, but the doing feels so exhausting because we don't believe it. Now, the other place where we can think about being consistent, so we've spoken about it as a concept, we've spoken about it as a belief and as a thought, and the next place we can think about it is as an emotion. And you think about feeling consistent, how does that feel? Like, how do you feel in your body if you were to, like, really just sit with that for a minute and be like, I feel consistent? It's probably like more mellow, probably more like less of this and more of this. And you get to feel consistent irrespective of actually what's happening in your life. Our emotions are created by our thoughts. Grounded, yes, Holly. Yeah, really grounded. So if you want to be consistent, you can do all the actions, or you can decide with your mindset that you are consistent, or you can think about, how do I feel consistent? How do I create the feeling of consistent in my body on purpose? And one of the things that came up on the live coaching that came up quite a lot, so it's a really, really powerful one, is getting ourselves to the state that we want to be in before we do things. Exactly, Haley. Grounded, yeah. So how can we get ourselves to that state before we set aside what we're going to do for the day, instead of hustling to do more and more in the day because we want to prove something about ourselves, in this case, that we are consistent? The next way that we can, that consistency can interact with us, is in our actions. So this is one of the things that I've spoken about a lot. And we can be consistent in our actions without shoulding ourselves, without putting ourselves down, without judging ourselves. And what I want you to think about is, what actual emotions are most likely to have you showing up in a consistent way with ease. Because it's probably not going to be hustle or force or pressure or overwhelm or stress. And you can even think, I encourage you to think wider in your lives of where you already show up consistently. It could be brushing your teeth in the morning. I brush my teeth every morning. I'm consistent about it. If the definition of consistent is doing something every day, and I'm consistently acting on that, because my thoughts and my feelings are, this is easy, this is good for me, I know what to do, it will only take a few minutes, whatever it is. So I want you to think about anything, even if it seems like it's something silly, that you do where your action is to continue to do it consistently by the definition that a lot of us take on out there. And why is it that you are able to do that consistently? And what you'll see is you have thoughts and feelings that drive it. And those thoughts and feelings are going to be the opposite of, I should be consistent. Consistency is necessary. I have to be consistent. All the shoulding and the having that we've spoken about. And the last way I want to speak to you about it is consistency as a result that we create. So again, it could be, so we have the action of taking action in a consistent way, showing up consistently, and then we can have consistent results as well. So it could be, for those of you in business, for example, the difference between signing 2 clients 1 week and then no clients for 3 weeks versus signing a client a week. Like, how do we create consistent results? So this is what I wanted to speak to you about. And for those of you, you may know this, I certified at the Life Coach School. Some of you are coaches, some of you also certified. So you've heard of the model. And the model basically connects circumstances in our life to thoughts. So we have thoughts about circumstances. And then our thoughts drive our feelings. I don't know if you can hear me when I move my head away from the mic, so I'm going to try be more thoughtful about that. And then our feelings drive our actions. And then our actions create our results. Oh. So often what happens when we want consistent results, I'm just going to shorthand it. When we want consistent results, what we're seeing out there a lot in the market, a lot in the conversation, a lot on Instagram, is therefore we must have consistent actions. Right? So this is what everyone is telling us to do. So we are spending all of our time battling to have consistent actions, but we're not succeeding when we're coming at a place of pressure, or like, if the thought is, I have to be consistent, we can, yes. I want you even to think about this. When you think I have to be consistent to create success, how do you feel? Like, what emotions come up to you? What's your emotional experience when you are telling yourself that you have to be consistent to create results? I can tell you, like, feel free to type away, whether you're live or in the replay. And I will tell you, when I used to have this story, I would just feel very like constricted, restricted, tight, pressured, uncomfortable, disappointed, overwhelmed. Yep, pressured. Yes. And then how do we show up from that pressure? Do we show up consistently? And even if we do, even if we show up, I don't know if you guys saw me post about this, but it's like, is it better to post something every single day just to get something out there because we have to get something out there because it's a daily consistency story? Or is it better to really get into a place of thinking about what you want your audience to receive, thinking about how you're going to help them, thinking about what they need to hear from you, thinking about what's going to be fun? Like, is the value really in just being seen every day, or is the value in creating value? Especially because there's like hundreds of millions of people on these platforms. It's the same, even, I want to take an example outside of business because I know not everyone in here is in business. So it's the same even with dating, right? Like, you can tell yourself, I'm going to go on a date every single day if you want to meet someone, or I'm going to go on the app every single day if I want to meet someone. But if you go on the app, send, hi, how are you? And then log off And then like you're only having those boring conversations. You're never opening yourself up. You're never being vulnerable. You're never like actually trying to build a connection. Is showing up every day going to be what creates the relationship? Or is it more strategic to think like, what I want to give myself an hour to actually to connect with someone online and engage and like build relationships or try to build relationships? Like, is it the everyday? Is it the consistency? Or is it how we show up? Is it how we are willing to be vulnerable? Is it how we are thinking and believing at that time, right? So just showing up every single day is not actually going to be what creates your results. And I know that I'm standing against a lot of what the market says out there. And it's not to say being consistency won't create results. Being consistent won't create results, but only being consistent is not going to be what creates results. And that's the problem, is when we think it's only being consistent here in our actions, I see people shoving themselves, not letting themselves take breaks or be human or have an off day or switch off properly and not be available or whatever it is, because we've built this culture that we have to be available all the time and consistent and show up all the time in order to build trust. It is just not true. And the example that I've been giving on my Instagram this week is friends, like those friends that you don't speak to all the time, but when you do, it's like nothing's changed. You like literally pick up right where you left off without having spoken to them all the time. So consistency was not necessary for that relationship. And if consistency is not necessary for that relationship, consistency isn't necessary for any relationship, including romantic relationships, family relationships, your relationship to yourself, your relationship to your work, your relationship to your future clients, if you are in business. Like, I really want you to think about that. Like, you already have examples where you are creating results in your life without consistency. Another example came up on a coaching call recently was dating, right? And so a few people were speaking about their relationships, but they didn't start their relationships by seeing each other every day at the same time for the same amount of time and doing the same thing. Like, it really wasn't about that. So what the current like underlying thing is, what's more important than consistency is trust. Trust that you will show up again. Trust that you can take time off and come back. Trust that when you take time off and come back, the other people will still be there. They will still care, which is like the friend example, the romantic example, and even your audience example. I took a few weeks off posting of social media and sending emails and creating podcasts, and I feel more connected to my audience than ever because this is what I did from it. I decided that I wanted to be more connected on purpose. And after my break, I had the energy and the creativity to create literally this community that we are all experiencing together. So I feel more connected to you than ever, even though I was inconsistent in how I showed up. Okay, the next is consistency as a feeling. And I want you to think about so we spoke about how it feels grounded in the body. And I want you to think about how you show up where you feel consistent in your body. And again, it can be examples from, relationships, from making breakfast. It doesn't have to always be this big dramatic example. And when we think it does, we miss the opportunities to learn from the simple day-to-day examples that are like, that's honestly where the gold is, I promise you. So I want you to think about how you show up, how you interact with others, what you do, what you stop doing when you feel consistent, like in yourself. Like, a big thing for me when I feel consistent in myself is I stop seeking external validation. I stop asking other people to give me the answers. I stop reacting to other people's emotions. Right? Like, I'm feeling grounded, I'm feeling good in myself. I allow other people to be human. That's a good one. That was a good one for my marriage, allowing my husband to be human. So really thinking about, how do you show up? What's actually happening here in your actions? If our feelings drive our actions, what's actually happening when you feel consistent? And of course, then we have the thought. I'm consistent. You just literally get to decide and believe that at any point in time. It literally doesn't matter what you are doing. And that's so important, because this is a sneaky way perfectionism shows up with my clients, with all the brains. Probably recognize it for yourself as well, is, well, like, I can only believe that I'm consistent when I'm showing up every day, or I'm acting consistently. But we can see here that the acting consistently is coming as a result of the belief, right? What you are thinking is literally driving how you are showing up. So what I see happen is, like, if I'm not 100% consistent, then I can't believe it yet. And I want to tell you the opposite is true. What drives more consistency is believing that you are consistent, regardless of whether you are actually being consistent or not. So I really want you for today to really, and come and post about it, sit in the mindset of I am consistent, and I give myself permission to believe that I'm consistent right now. Like, literally exactly as I am, even if I don't get out of bed today, even if you're watching this in your pajamas, in bed, and that's what you plan to do all day, when you said that you were going to work, or you should be online, or whatever it is, I really want you to sit with, like, you get to be consistent and do nothing one day. You get to be consistent and take a break. You get to be consistent and take time off over the holidays. You get to be consistent and literally ... insert anything there, I promise you. So really sitting with that. How do you feel when you believe? Remember, our beliefs, our thoughts are going to drive our feelings. How do you feel when you believe that you are consistent, and how do you show up from believing you are consistent? It's going to be wildly different to the I should be consistent, I promise you. And then, of course, we started, and I just put the concept of consistency. And there's lots of concepts out there that gurus will tell you about. The gurus, I don't know if I'm saying it right, that gurus will tell you about all of these concepts, all of these theories, from consistency to the 5 a.m. club, to eat the frog first, to whatever it is. And you get to decide what you want to take on and what you don't. But if something is not working for you, and you feel like you are giving so much energy to try and be consistent, to try and wake up at 5 a.m., to try and eat the frog first, because you've been told that that's going to be what creates success, I want you to think about today's training giving you the permission to leap over whatever rules someone else has created and literally create your own. Like, this is why I have time hackers and not time managers, because time manager, I want you to think of it like, it's like a manager is still following the CEO's orders. You are the CEOs of your own lives. You are the CEOs of your goals. You are the CEOs of your dreams. And following someone else's rules is always going to constrict you. Now, it's not to say if things don't work for you, use them, but use what works for you, and don't struggle to push yourself into a box with things that aren't working for you. Because a sneaky thing is happening here as well, where we give our power and we give the responsibility to the theory that someone else has written. So we give the responsibility, the credit, and the power to consistency instead of ourselves. So even when you succeed, you're going to not see yourself as responsible for it. You're going to see consistency. So the next time you're forcing yourself into consistency and probably experiencing some imposter syndrome, instead of sitting in like, I am the creator and this is how I created it. So one of the things that I always have my clients do is really sit in, how are we creating success so that we can create the blueprints. We spoke about this on the live coaching call. It's a big part of what we do in Time Hackers, and it's super powerful to see what creates success for you. We are not all the same. Yes, Joe. We are not all the same. We are not even all the same every day, because we, especially as women, like I said, experience cycles. And I'll leave you in a minute to ponder all of this and to ask any questions. In fact, you can start typing questions now if you have them. But I will tell you that I was coaching someone, and she literally said, one week I had so much energy and I felt like in flow so easily. And then last week, so the week after, I really didn't. And it felt so heavy, and I felt like I just had to force myself to show up, and I just had to, like, it just was such a struggle. Everything became more difficult, and it only became more difficult because she was going against what she was feeling in her body and instead focusing on being consistent and what someone else had told her outside of her body. So that is my consistency rant today. This went on longer than I thought, but I hope it was worth it. I think for sure it was. Lots to think about and lots to release you from. You are responsible. You are capable. You know what's best for you. Be willing to test and try and go for it. And that is it from me today. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.